Hello and welcome to Sports Mole's latest episode talking all things Arsenal. My name is Ben Napton and I'm delighted to say, as always, we're joined by Arsenal expert Charles Watts. Are you doing well today, Charles? Have you recovered from the madness of the late equaliser on Sunday?
I have, yeah. My voice hasn't. It's still a little bit croaky from it. It sounds a lot better than it did yesterday, though. But yeah. Apart from that, I'm doing good, Ben. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I think as the young kids say, it's the limbs in the stadium with that late equaliser. It was a proper, Emirates euphoria, if you like. So I think that is the one place to start. So Arsenal won, Man City won. I wouldn't. It's a difficult one to start analysing because I think we all breathed a sigh of relief at that late equaliser. Arsenal were pushing for that entire second half, but you look at the underlying stats, and it was Guardiola's lowest ever possession percentage as a manager. It's a game that we don't really see from any Guardiola side, especially a Man City side with all their backs against the wall. So, in spite of the manner of Martinelli's late leveler, was it very much a case of 2 points dropped rather than 1 point gained for Arsenal?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough to really sum it up. I think, look, in terms of the game itself, how it all panned out, it's obviously a point gained because it looked like they weren't going to be getting anything. But they're certainly good enough to have won that game. I think, and I went into that game expecting an Arsenal win. So from that point of view, it's obviously 2 points dropped. But it was a strange game. It really was. I just don't think anyone was expecting Manchester City to do what they did. I certainly wasn't. I don't think Mikel Arteta was at all. And I just don't, it's so unheard of how Man City played and how they approached that game and the tactics they sort of employed, especially after the goal. So it was just really, really difficult for Arsenal to find a way back and to get themselves level. I think if they'd have done that earlier, I'm sure they would have gone on and won the game, but it just didn't happen. So it was a really tough game to assess, I think. Um, so I don't really know still 2 days on if whether I think it's 2 points dropped or a point gained. It's really tough. But I did leave the stadium disappointed, even after sort of celebrating a last minute equaliser. So I think that probably tells me that I'm leaning more towards it was 2 points dropped because I definitely felt that City were there for the taking. This isn't the City side that we've seen before. And I think the way they played and the way they approached that was evidence of it.
You say it did seem like Arteta wasn't expecting City to set up the way or play the way they did, especially looking at his starting 11 selection. So looking at that, of course, I think when we saw the Mikel Merino, Declan Rice, Martin, Zubimendi midfield, there was maybe a bit of a collective groan from Arsenal fans because that midfield didn't work against Liverpool, didn't really work against Athletic. Of course, Arsenal only won that game when the subs changed the game. Odegaard was out. He could have trialed Ethan Waneri in that role, could have started Eze. He didn't. He brought Eze on at half time. Of course, he then set up the equaliser. Lovely assist over the top for Martinelli. But yeah, that Marino in the Odegaard role, that's now 3 times he's tried it from the start. It's not really worked. He took him off at half time in the Man City game. It's one of those things that's easy to say in hindsight, but do you think he got his starting lineup wrong, or was could he be forgiven because he was expecting City to play a completely different style?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. I think he got it wrong because it's certainly not the starting 11 that I wanted to see. I'd have much rather him gone more on the front foot and played a Nwaneri or a Eze, as you said, in that role rather than Marino. But I thought he was going to play that midfield three, so I wasn't surprised when I saw the starting 11. I figured he would play that, and to be honest, I didn't think it was going to. I didn't think it was a terrible call because I thought Man City were going to play the way Manchester City normally play, and it was going to be quite a free flowing game, end to end, and it was going to kind of need that midfield a little bit to try and sort of dominate physically as well in the game. But because the game state didn't play out like that at all, because Man City went so defensive and went into their shell, it just made that midfield three completely redundant, really. And Mikel knew that. That's why he made the changes he did at half time. He never makes those changes. So he knew that the team selection wasn't correct because of the way Manchester City were playing. So he did correct it. I was more surprised that Trossard played on the left hand side, I have to say, before the game when the team news came through and I saw that. I was not expecting that. I thought it'd be Eze, I thought it'd be Martinelli. I never ever even came into my head that it might be Trossard. That was really out of the blue. And I don't think that worked at all. He didn't have the pace to get past Kuzanov, I think it was over there. Kuzanov was stronger than him as well. And it just, unless something was going to fall to Trossard in the box, a sort of loose ball falls through in the box that he could finish. He wasn't really going to, it was pretty clear within a few minutes he wasn't going to have any impact really on that left-hand side in the first half. So I was more surprised by that than I was by the midfield three. But yeah, like everyone else, it's not a three that I really, really like. I don't think it's a terrible midfield three, but it's just a bit clunky. There's not really any spark there or real creativity there. So it'd be nice to see a little bit more of a front foot selection. It's going to be really interesting what he does at Newcastle. I know we'll talk about that later on in the show, but was this the end of that three? Or is he going to go again at Newcastle in a really physical game as well? It's going to be that'll be a really interesting call.
Yeah, I think lots of Arsenal fans are hoping it is the end of that three. I mean, it is a very physical, robust midfield three, like you said. But, Arsenal, they're so good off the ball, those three in the Arsenal team. But, they need players who are exceptional on the ball in those situations, facing those low blocks. Sorry. Looking a bit further forward, you mentioned Trossard there. Also want to look at Viktor Gyokeres' display because the player who had the most touches in the Man City box was Ricardo Calafiori. Now we know that obviously, yes, he's a left back. He's a marauding inverted left back. He loves to get forward, but he's still a left back, and Gyökeres is still a striker. Now the Gerd Müller Trophy winner after the Ballon d'Or ceremony last night. We were speaking last week, and you were saying that you don't really care who he scores against because he's scoring against the teams like Nottingham Forest, Leeds United, who Arsenal have sometimes struggled against, and he's getting in those positions to score in those games, which is fantastic. But it's now, yeah, Man City, Liverpool, Man United. He's not had an impact in those big games. Is it the fact? I mean, Jamie Carragher keeps saying that Arsenal's problem isn't scoring; it's creating. They need to create more for him. Is it as simple as that, or maybe does Gyökeres have to do more to engineer his own chances, like maybe Gabriel Jesus would if he was playing?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. I do think Jamie Carragher is right about the creativity. That is clearly a bit of an issue for Arsenal, and it has been for a fair while. But I also think that Gyökeres, he needs to come a little bit more alive in and around the penalty area when someone's got the ball out wide and is about to put a ball in. He to me, it looks like he's a little bit flat-footed at times, and he's not anticipating, which is a bit of a surprise given his goal-scoring record. I thought he would be a little bit more on the move in the penalty area when the ball is in and around that sort of vicinity. A fair few times crosses come in, and I just feel like he's a little bit on his heels a little bit rather than anticipating moving to the near post, something like that. Feels like he's a little bit flat-footed at times. So I think it's a bit of both. I think Arsenal definitely need to create more chances for him, but I think in and around the penalty area, his movement maybe needs to improve a little bit more as well. We know he's great on the transition when Arsenal suddenly spring forward and play him into space down the channels. We've seen that already. But when it's a little bit more, when they're not in that sort of transition game and it is more of a low block game and they need something in and around the penalty area, that's when I'd like to see him come alive a little bit more than he does. But I'm still perfectly happy with what we've seen from Viktor Gyokeres so far in an Arsenal shirt. I don't think when you look at those big games he's been involved in, the lack of creativity and the lack of chances for him have been very, very apparent as well. I was missing Kai Havertz in that game though. I was sitting in the stand, standing in the stands actually, and I did find myself thinking and pining for Kai Havertz quite a lot as that game went on. I just felt it would be perfect for him, and I just think Arsenal would be better in those big games with Kai Havertz. I thought that at the time, even when Gyökeres is signed. So it's nothing that Gyökeres has done that has changed my opinion. But I always felt when Gyökeres was coming in for the big games, certainly the ones early on in the season that we've seen, so Anfield, Trafford, and the game against Man City, I always felt if he was fit, those would be Kai Havertz games. And, Gyökeres would be eased in a bit more slowly. He'd play the other games like that. But I was pining for Kai Havertz a little bit, I have to say, on Sunday.